How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Ayin. Daf Kuf Ayin, where are we? Okay, Daf Kuf Ayin. Masechta BavaBasra, friends. Yo, friends. This is awesome, right? Kuf Ayin. We're like so close to finishing BavaBasra. BavaBasra is, of course, Kuf Ayin Vav. Kuf Ayin. We're so close. That's awesome. Less than a week. Crazy. Wow. Okay. Well, it's the morning over here. I got my coffee, which is fun. I'm going to start off Kuf Samach Tes Omud Beis at the two dots, about 10-15 lines from the bottom. And the truth is, we're going to stop at the top of Kuf Ayin Omud Beis, kind of at the Mishnah. Kuf Ayin Omud Beis is not a particularly long daf, Amud, whatever, and I figure we'll start tomorrow from the new Mishnah. So tomorrow might be a bit of a long one, but anyways. Alright, here we go. Drink a little coffee. Let's do it. Gegangen. Alright. Kuf Samach Tes Amud Beis at the two dots. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. It says Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Hanosi matona lachavero. So if somebody gives a gift to his friend, okay, so let's say Shimon gives a field to Reuven as a gift. And, so Shimon writes a document, says, Reuven, the field belongs to you now, and he gives the document to Reuven. So the field now belongs to Reuven. What if Reuven returns the shtar to, what if Reuven returns the shtar to Shimon? So then, if Reuven returns the shtar to Shimon, so Reb Shimon Gamliel says that the gift is returned, right? Osios niknos b'mesira, that we're going to learn about. That Be'etzem, look, Shimon gave Reuven the shtar. Reuven gave back the shtar to Shimon. Simply by giving back the shtar, you don't need to make a new, gift, right? You don't need to make a whole new kinyan. No, simply Reuven returns the shtar, and the gift is returned. Whereas the Chachamim say, "Ein osios niknos b'mesira," that you can't simply give it back. You'd have to write up a new document, say that I, Reuven, am giving the field to Shimon. Okay. So again, Reb Shimon Gamliel says, that if Shimon gives a field as a gift to Reuven, and he writes up a document, but Reuven returns, right, so now it's Reuven's field, but he returns after, I don't know, maybe after a week, whatever it is, he returns the document to Shimon. So according to Reb Shimon Gamliel, the mere act of returning, of giving back the document, also changes the ownership of the field to Shimon's once again. So as the Chacham say, the gift stands if Reuven, right, so meaning it was Shimon's field, Shimon gave the field as a gift to Reuven, he wrote a document, and now it's Reuven's field. And if Reuven wants to give the gift back to Shimon, so it's a separate kinyan. You need to write a new document. And simply giving back the original document is not enough, and the gift for now will stand. The original gift stands, and it's still Reuven's, even though he gave back the document to Shimon. Fine. Frankly, my time with Reb Shimon Gamliel. What's pshat with Reb Shimon Gamliel? Why does Reb Shimon ben Gamliel say that simply returning the document transfers the ownership of the field back to Shimon? Interesting. So Rav Asi has an interesting opinion, which is not based on Osios Niknos b'Mesira. Rav Asi's opinion is, well, when Shimon gives the gift to Reuven, when Shimon gives the field as a gift to Reuven, and he gives Reuven a document that says that the field belongs to him, to Reuven, basically what's happening is Shimon is saying to Reuven, so long as you are in possession of this document, right? Shimon is saying to Reuven, so long as you are in possession of this document, the field belongs to you. And therefore, when Reuven returns the document to Shimon, and he's no longer in possession of the document, so he's no longer in possession of the field. Again, Rav Asi says, Rav Asi, Naiseka Omer Lo, it's as though Shimon is saying to Reuven, Sadazo Nesunu Lecha, that this field is yours, Kolzman, so long as Shashtar Biyodcha, so long as you have this document. Maskef Lo Rabba. Rabba, however, asks a question. Yochi, if that's the case, Nignav Oavad. What happens if the document is stolen? What happens if the document gets lost? He no longer owns the field. He loses the document and no longer owns the field. Right, Yochi, Nignav Oavad Nam. Rather, says Rabba, no, it's not about who technically has the document or not. Rather, Va'osius Niknos b'Mesira, the Machlaikes between Rav Shimon Gamliel and the Chachamim is with regard to Osius Niknis b'Mesira. Rav Shimon Gamliel said Osius Niknis b'Mesira. Rav Shimon Gamliel says that letters, a document essentially, can simply be acquired by transfer, right? And therefore, Shimon gave Reuven a document that says that I, Shimon, am giving my field as a gift to Reuven. Reuven can simply give the document back. He doesn't have to write a new document. Simply give it back, and that would be enough to, what is that? That would be enough to change the ownership back to Shimon. Rabbanan Saber was the rabbis hold Ein Osius Niknos b'Mesira, whereas the rabbis say that it doesn't work like that. You would have to write up a separate document and or do some kind of a separate kinyan. And so long as that separate kinyan has not transpired, so then the field, the property, continues to belong to Reuven l'chaim. Okay. Says the Gemara. Okay, so important. So according to Rabbah, the machlokes between Reb Shimon Gamliel and the Chachamim is with regard to Osios Niknos b'Mesira. Reb Shimon Gamliel says Osios Niknos b'Mesira. The Rabbanan say Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira. Now, says the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan the Rabbis taught Habal Lidon Bishtar Chazaka. Okay, now this is be'etzem going to take us till the end. We're now going to go straight till the end on this sugya. If somebody has a shtar and a chazaka, so let's just say, now this, explaining exactly what this Bryce is talking about is going to be what keeps us busy for the next, for the rest of the daf essentially. Let's say that this is talking about a scenario where, let's go back to Cheskas Habatim. Shimon shows up at Reuven's property, and he says, Reuven, this property is yours, it's mine. And right, so that's what Shimon says to Reuven. You know what Reuven says? Reuven says, I'll prove you wrong 2 ways. First of all, I have a document that says that the field is mine, that you sold it to me. And secondly, I've also been here for 3 years, and I have witnesses who can prove that. So I have both a document and a chazakah. So according to Rebbe says the document is better. Right? Go based on the document. According to Shimon Gamliel, he says go based on the chazakah. Okay? So Tanabanan, again, the rabbis taught, Habalidon b'shtar v'chazakah. So if Reuven has both a shtar and a chazakah, nidon b'shtar divrei Rebbe. So Rebbe says that he should make his case with the document. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer b'chazakah, whereas Rav Shimon Gamliel says he should make his case with the chazakah. What is the machlokas between Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and Rebbe? How come Rebbe says the document, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says the chazakah? So now just as an aside, remember the whole point, this isn't directly connected to the Gemara, but like just conceptually, maybe you're kind of, these gears are turning for the Chevra over here in Babylon Talmud in their brains, because they're remembering Cheskas Habatim. And they're saying, wait a second. What's the whole point of a chazakah? Right? The whole reason why chazakah works is that Reuven can't be expected to hold on to his document forever. So we say after 3 years, we can rely upon the chazaka at that point because he might not have the document. So at that point we could rely upon the chazaka. So therefore, conceptually, I'm just pointing this out. Conceptually, the whole point of a chazaka is really as a stand-in for a shtar. Really, the shtar. I mean, if you have a shtar, that should be really the best thing. If you don't have the shtar, so then we say, okay, you're not stuck. We can rely upon a chazaka in that case. But really, conceptually, I'd imagine that shouldn't everybody agree that like the shtar is the better one? The chazaka is really only if you don't have a shtar. Okay, we can rely on a chazaka. So if you have a shtar, you should use that. No. So, anyways, now we're going to explain exactly what the machlokas is, right? Why aren't we saying that, right? What exactly is the scenario where Rebbe would say the shtar, but Rabbi Shimon Gamliel would say the chazaka? What's going on? So this is what we're here to explain. So what's the machlokas? Also, Rav Dimi Omar, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he said, "Be'osius niknes b'masira kamifliye." So this is very interesting. This is very interesting because as I pointed out, as I reiterated a few minutes ago, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion was that when Shimon gives a gift to Ruvain and Ruvain returns the shtar, the gift is reverted because osios niknos b'masira, according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. According to the Chachamim, the gift remains because ein osios niknos b'masira, and therefore it stays with Ruvain. We're going to see now, so now we get to our machlokas, to the new machlokas, which is about when Shimon says to Ruvain, this is my field, not yours. Ruvain says, I have a shtar and I have a chazaka. And says Rav Dimi, the machlokas between Rav Shimon and Gamliel, who says that we go based on the chazaka, and Rebbe who says we go based on the shtar, the machlokas is with regard to osios nimsos b'masira. What does that mean? It means the following. So I would say that the scenario is like a chezkas abatim scenario. Shimon shows up at Ruvain's field, and he says, Ruvain, what are you doing on my field? And Ruvain says, well, it's mine, and I have both a document and a chazaka to prove it. However, according to Rav Dimi, that's not the scenario. Rather, the scenario according to Rav Dimi is not where Shimon shows up at Ruvain's field, but Levi shows up at Ruvain's field. And Levi says to Ruvain, Ruvain, what are you doing on my field? And Ruvain says, well, I'll tell you what I'm doing on your field. Well, on my field. Is that you, Levi, sold the field to Shimon. Shimon, let's say, you could say gifted, why not? Why? I mean, it could have been he sold it to me either. Let's just say gifted. Well, let's just say gifted. Shimon gifted the field to me. So meaning, Levi shows up at Reuven's property, Reuven's field. Levi says to Reuven, what are you doing on my field? Reuven says, it's not your field. It's my field. How is it my field? Well, you sold it to Shimon. Shimon then gave it to me. And I have the document of the sale to Shimon. So be'etzim, what happened? Levi sold the field to Shimon. Shimon then took the document and Pashut gave it to Reuven. He didn't write up a new document that says that I Shimon am selling the field to Reuven. No, he took the document that says that I Levi am selling the field to Shimon. He Pashut gave that document to Reuven. And now Levi comes to Reuven and says, Reuven, what are you doing on my field? Reuven says, look, it's not your field, it's my field, and I have two ways to prove that. A, I have the document of you selling it to Shimon, and he gave that document to me. And secondly, I've been here for 3 years, and I have witnesses who can prove that I have a chazaka. So now here is the machlokes between Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rebbe says, rely on the document. No problem. Osios niknos b'masira. That when Shimon Pashut gave the document to Reuven, it's not Reuven's. Osios niknos b'masira. That document is completely valid. We can rely upon it. That if Reuven now has the document, it's Reuven's field. Reb Shimon Gamliel, however, says, Ein osios niknos b'masira. That simply giving the document to Reuven doesn't work. You'd have to write a new document gifting it to Reuven, and therefore we can't rely upon the document, and therefore better to rely upon the chazaka. Okay, so that's how Rav Dimi wants to explain this machlokas. Now what's notable, as I've kind of been getting to, is that here Reb Shimon Gamliel is saying Ein osios niknos b'masira, whereas in the previous scenario when Shimon gives Reuven a gift and Reuven gives the document back to Shimon, Reb Shimon Gamliel says that the gift is returned because Osios Niknos b'Mesira. So we're about to get into that. Okay, so Reb Shimon Gamliel Savar Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira. I'm at the top of, how about this? The bottom of Kuf Samach Tesam base. So Kiel Rav Dimi Omar, Osios Niknos b'Mesira Kim. If the Machlokes is about Osios Niknos b'Mesira. Reb Shimon Gamliel Savar Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira. Reb Shimon Gamliel says Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira, and therefore we don't rely upon the document, we rely upon the chazaka. The Rebbe Savar, whereas Rebbe holds Osios Niknos b'Mesira, that essentially the field Shimon could simply give his document to Reuven, and now the field belongs to Reuven, and therefore Rebbe says let's rely upon the document. Omer le'Abaye, excuse me, Abaye says to Rav Dimi, but imkein pluta lidemar. But then Rav Dimi, you're arguing on Rabbah, because Rabbah had said that Rav Shimon Gamliel's opinion is Osios Niknos b'Mesira, and you, Rav Dimi, are saying that Rav Shimon Gamliel's opinion is Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira. So Amalei, so Rav Dimi responds to Abaye, v'tiflo. Okay, fine, great. Machlekes Rav Dimi and Rabbah. I argue with Rabbah. Amalei. So Abaye says to Rav Dimi, no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to argue with Rabbah. What I'm saying is, this is what I'm saying. Masnisa lo mitarza elo ki mitarza mar. No, what I'm saying to you, Abaye says to Rav Dimi, what I'm saying to you is that, not just that you're arguing on Rabbah, but that Rabbah came to explain a brisa. Right? There was a brisa that says that if Shimon gives a gift to Reuven and Reuven returns the document, according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the gift is returned. According to the Chachamim, it stands. And the question is why. Rabbah came to explain that brisa for us, and he says the reason why is because according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Osios Niknos b'Mesira, and therefore v'im kain. And if you, Rav Dimi, are explaining this brisa with the with the field where he has the chazaka and the shtar, if you're saying that according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, we rely upon the shtar because ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira, well then, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is contradicting himself in two different brises. Right? According to the first brisa by the gift, so Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is saying Osios Niknos b'Mesira, and this brisa by the shtar and the chazaka, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is saying Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira. Right? In the first one he's saying Osios Niknos b'Mesira. In this one he's saying Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira. Therefore he's contradicting himself. Abaye says that's the problem, Rav Dimi. Is that if you want to explain this brisa by the shtar and the chazaka that way, well then Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is contradicting himself. So Abaye says, I don't think that we can explain the shtar and chazaka brisa that way. Elo Amar Abaye, rather this is Abaye Hocha b'Mayiskin. And here what are we talking about? Kigon shenimtza echad mein karuv apostle. Okay, so Abaye says that actually we can go back to the original scenario, the Cheskas Sabatim kind of scenario. Shimon shows up at Reuven's field and he says, Reuven, what are you doing on my field? Okay, and Reuven says, look, it's my field, it's not your field, you sold it to me, and I have two ways to prove that. I have a document, I have the document of the sale, and I've also been here for 3 years, I have a chazaka. Now the thing with the document is that the document has 2 witnesses signed on them. One of them is pasul. Maybe it's a ganif, whatever it is. One of them is pasul. So essentially, you don't have a valid document. Or do you? That's what we're about to figure out. But basically you have a document that has really essentially only one witness on it. So as far as witnesses are concerned, you need 2 witnesses, so the witnesses are irrelevant. But this then gets back to the machloikes from Masechta Gittin about Eidei Chasima Karte or Eidei Mesira Karte. Right? Do you need witnesses on a document, or do you not need witnesses on a document? Right? Without witnesses on a document, you can simply give the document to the other person in front of witnesses, and those witnesses, the Eidei Mesira, those who are observing the transfer of the document, will be the ones, if you need to validate, call them up. So therefore, we have a document of the sale, but one of the witnesses is pasul. And the question is, do you really need witnesses or not? Rebbe would say you don't need witnesses, and we can still rely upon the shtar, even though one of the witnesses is pasul, because we don't really need them anyways. And Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says Eidei Chasima Karte, that you do need the witnesses, and if you have a apostle witness, it's a big problem. So again, Amar Abai says, Abai, Achav Ma'iskin, here what are we talking about? Kigon, for example, Shin Tzechad Mein Karv Apostle. That one of the witnesses signed on the document of the sale of Shimon's field to Reuven is apostle. And therefore, you don't have valid witnesses for the document. And the machlokes between Rebbe and Shimon ben Gamliel aligns with the machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and Reb Meir. Rebbe Savilak Rabbi Elazar. Rebbe, who says that we rely upon the document, holds like Rabbi Elazar, the Amar who says Edi Mesira Karte, who says that it is the witnesses who observe the transfer of the document that is the most important thing. You don't really need witnesses to sign on it, and therefore the fact that one of the witnesses who signed on it turned out to be apostle doesn't really matter. We could still rely upon the document. We could rely upon the shtar. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Savilak Reb Meir, whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds like Reb Meir the Omer Eidei Chasima Karte, who says, Reb Meir says Eidei Chasima Karte, that the important witnesses are those who are signed on the document. One of them is apostle. That is a big problem. We cannot rely upon the document. Rather, says Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, we rely upon the Chazaka. Omar Reb Abba. But one second. Rabbi Elazar would not say that if you have a document that witnesses did sign on, and one of them is apostle, no problem. Rabbi Elazar would not say that. You don't need witnesses, sure. But if you have witnesses, they have to be kosher. Ma pitom. But Amar Rabbi Abba, doesn't Rabbi Abba say, Modahai Rabbi Elazar? That Rabbi Elazar, however, would admit that even though you don't need witnesses, b'mezuyaf mitocho shel apostle, that if there is that if there ends up being an issue with those witnesses, that if there's a problematic, or if the witnesses make the document problematic, well, you can't just ruin the document with witnesses. You don't need the witnesses, but if you have them there, make sure that they're kosher. If they're not, it's going to ruin the document. El Amar Rabbi Avina, rather says Rabbi Avina, Hakomodim, everybody agrees, Sha'im, skip the next two words, who's kaknu leidusin shal edim benimtze seidusin mizuyefes shel pasul. That everybody agrees that if the witnesses that are signed on the document are apostle, then forget about it. The document is apostle. So that's not the machlokes between Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. We're not talking about a scenario where there was a document with an invalid witness, because if there was, then Rebbe would not say rely upon that document. Like Rabbi says, Lo nechliku ela b'shtar she'ein olav edim klal. So rather, the machlokes between Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is when there was a document of the sale, but there were no witnesses at all on the document. Right? So Reuven says, "Look, I have a document and I also have a chazaka. Here's the document, but the document doesn't have any witnesses on it. But I also have a chazaka that I've been in for 3 years. I have witnesses to testify about that. So the Rebbe Savilak Rabbi Elazar. So look, Rebbe holds like Rabbi Elazar, Tomer Edim Mesira Karte, who says that it's the Edim Mesira. You don't really need the Edim Chasima, and therefore it's a valid document. Rely upon it." Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Savar law ki Reb Meir, whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds like Reb Meir the Amar Eidei Chasima Karte, who says that the witnesses signing on the document are crucial, and therefore since the document does not have those witnesses, we cannot rely upon it, and therefore instead rely upon the chazaka. Viba Yisema, alternatively, that's one way to explain the brisa, right? With the shtar and the chazaka, Rebbe, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Let's talk about there was a document without any witnesses on it. It's machlokes between Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. It aligns with the machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and Reb Meir about do you actually need witnesses or not. It's a document without witnesses. Do you need the witnesses or not? V'baisim. Alternatively, here's another way to explain the brisa with the document and the chazaka. That the machlokes between Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is with regard to moedev b'shtar sheksavo tzarich l'kaimo azoy. So meaning Shimon comes to Reuven, and Shimon comes to Reuven and says, "Reuven, what are you doing on my field?" Reuven says, "What do you mean? It's my field. I have a document and I have a chazaka to prove that." Now Reuven then shows Shimon the document. Shimon says, "Wait a second. Hold up, 1 second. Yeah, I wrote that document. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I wrote that document. But I never sold you the field. That document, where'd you find that document?" That document must have fell out of my pocket. I never actually sold you the field. I never actually, right? That isn't it's not like I sold you the field and then I gave you that document for proof. I don't know how you got that. That document fell out of my pocket. So he's admitting that he wrote the document, but he's saying that he never gave it to Reuven. So Shaila is Moda B'Shtar Sheksava. Once Shimon admits that he wrote the document, Tzarich L'Kaimo. Does he need to then be Mekayim that star in order to no? So then would Reuven need to then be Mekayim the star? Right, exactly. Would Reuven then need to be Mekayim the star in order to be able to for it to be a valid proof? So Rebbe would say Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Ein Tzarich L'Kaimo, that Reuven would not need to be Mekayim the star. We could rely upon it, just like this. Whereas Rav Shimon Gamliel says Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Tzarich L'Kaimo, and therefore, so long as Reuven hasn't been Mekayim the star, so rely upon the Chazaka. Okay. So again, we say Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Tzarich L'Kaimo coming for that the machlokes between Rebbe and Shimon and Gamliel is with regard to Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Tzarich L'Kaimo, meaning Shimon says, yes, I wrote that document, but it fell out of my pocket. So the question is, does Reuven, in order for Reuven to be able to rely upon that document, does he need to be Mekayim the star? The Rebbe says Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Ein Tzarich L'Kaimo. Rebbe says that no, Reuven doesn't need to be Mekayim the star. He's got this document, says that he owns it. Reuven even admitted, so Reuven has his document, Shimon even admitted that he wrote it. Reuven does not need to be Mekayim the star, we can rely upon the star. So Rebbe says rely upon the star. Reb Shimon Gamliel says Tzarich L'Kaimo. And Reb Shimon Gamliel says Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Tzarich L'Kaimo. Reuven would need to be Mekayim in order to rely upon it. So look, so long as he has been Mekayim the star, he can always rely upon the Chazaka. But one second. Mitaka learn the opposite. That Rebbe says Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Tzarich L'Kaimo, and Reb Shimon Gamliel says Mod B'Shtar Sheksavu Ein Tzarich L'Kaimo. L'Chaim. Ditani, as we learn in Shnaim Oichzin B'Talis. In Shnaim Oichzin B'Talis. Difficult parak. Shnaim Adukin B'Shtar. If you have Reuven and Shimon are fighting over a document. Reuven and Shimon are fighting, Mom is playing tug of war on a document. Shimon, who lent $1,000 to Reuven, says, look, whoa, Reuven, what are you doing? I lent you $1,000. You wrote me a document that says that you owe me $1,000. This document fell out of my pocket. You found it and now you want to tear it up as if to say, right, so that I wouldn't be able to collect it anymore. But Shimon says, no, this fell out of my pocket. This is my document. You still owe me $1,000. Velova Omer, whereas Reuven says, it says, who? No, it's my document. I already paid you back. This is my document. I'm going to tear it up. I already paid you back. So Shimon and Reuven are fighting over this document. Shimon says, look, I lent Reuven $1,000. This is my document to prove it. He never paid me back. It fell out of my pocket. Reuven says, what are you talking about? I paid you back. You gave me the document. I want to tear it up now, so you can't collect, you can't collect from me again. So Yiskai Mashtar b'chosam of Divrei Rebbe. So Rebbe says you have to be Mekayim the shtar. Shimon, if he wants to be able to collect from that document, from Reuven, needs to be Mekayim the shtar. So Moda B'Shtar Sheksavu Tzarich L'Kaimo. Rebbe is saying that Shimon admitted that he wrote the document, and in order for him to be able to collect with it, he will have to be Mekayim. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Yachlok, whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that with that Pashut they split it. No, Shimon doesn't need to be Mekayim the shtar in order to be able to collect anything. They could simply split it. But we ask, does Rebbe, because it sounds like according to Rebbe, he's saying that if Shimon is Mekayim the shtar, he could collect all $1,000. Not that they split it, but he collects all of it. But why would Rebbe say that Shimon would collect all of it? Does he not hold of the first Mishnah in Bava Metzia, the one that kicks off the the I don't even know. How can words describe Bava Metzia? I don't know. So let's just go weiter. But the Mishnah that kicks it all off, the journey of Bava Metzia begins with the Tnan Shnaim Oichezin B'Talis, that you have Reuven and Shimon are playing tug of war on a talis. And so Omer Ani Mitzosiyah, Shimon says, I found it. Reuven says, it's mine, I found it. So Shimon swears that he owns no less than half of it. And Reuven similarly makes a shvuah that he owns no less than half of it. And they split it. So it sounds like Rebbe, right? We have this loan document. Shimon says it fell out of my pocket. Reuven says, no, I paid it back. So it sounds like Rebbe is saying that if Shimon can be Mekayim the shtar, so then Shimon would collect all $1,000. But the first Mishnah in Bava Metzia, Shnai Mochzin, says that they, when you have two people making a competing claims, so they split it. So Amar Nachman says, look, if the shtar is already Mekuyim, right, that there's a handpick on it, so everybody agrees that they would split it. Ki plige, where Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel argues b'she'en mekuyim, where it is not yet mekuyim. Rabbi Savar mod b'shtar sheksovo tzorich lekaimo. Rebbe holds mod b'shtar sheksovo tzorich lekaimo. That Shimon admitted that. Shimon wouldn't be admitting that he wrote the document. No, Reuven would be admitting that he wrote the document. That makes more sense. Because Reuven writes the document, gives it to Shimon. So I guess Reuven admits that he wrote the document, and Shimon, right, that makes more sense. Okay. But anyways, so Reuven admitted, yes, I wrote you the document. Right, of course, Shimon wouldn't write that document. Right, so Shimon's argument that Reuven, that it's his document. So Reuven admits, yes, I wrote you the document and gave it to you. And Shimon's saying, that it fell out of his pocket, but that the loan is still outstanding. So anyways, so if Shimon can be Mekayim the shtar, right, so he needs to be Mekayim the shtar. So even though Reuven admitted that he wrote it, Shimon needs to be Mekayim the shtar. Mekayim le, Gabi Palga. And if Shimon can be Mekayim the shtar, so he can collect half of it. Below, Chas v'vamahu, but if he's not Mekayim the shtar, so then he can't collect anything with it. So Rebbe is not saying that if Shimon is Mekayim the shtar, he can collect all $1,000. That would allow him to collect half of it, as we know from the first Mishnah in Bava Metzia, that when you have two competing claims, so then you split it. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Savar, whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Mod b'shtar sheksavo ein tzarich l'kaimo, that Shimon would not need to be Mekayim the shtar, and simply they would split it. And they would split it. 1 second, is there noise outside? Just listening. Yeah, there is. Okay. What time is it? It's like 5:30 in the morning. Yeah, people like to make noise. Alright, even through the noise cancelling headphones. Azoy. So we have a question. What's the question? The question is that we are suggesting that in the scenario where Shimon says to Reuven, what are you doing on my field? And Reuven says, I'll prove to you it's my field. Reuven says, I have a document and I also have a chazaka. Now the thing is, Shimon looks at the document and says, yes, I wrote it, but it fell out of my pocket. So Rebbe says, Mod b'shtar sheksavo ein tzarich l'kaimo, that once Shimon admits that he wrote it, Reuven does not need to be mekayim it, and he can rely upon the document. Reb Shimon Gamliel says, so don't rely upon the document, instead rely upon the chazaka. However, in Shnaim Oichzin B'Talis, when we have this loan document, Shimon's claiming that it fell out of his pocket. Reuven says he already pays it back. So there, Rebbe says that Shimon would need to be Mekayim the shtar if he wants to be able to collect with it, and therefore Mod b'shtar sheksavo tzarich l'kaimo according to Rebbe, and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says no, automatically they split it because Mod b'shtar sheksavo ain't tzarich l'kaimo. So what's going on? On the one hand, with our Shimon and Reuven in the field, Rebbe says Mod b'shtar sheksavo ain't tzarich l'kaimo, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says Mod b'shtar sheksavo tzarich l'kaimo, and yet in Shnai Mochzim B'Talis we see fakert Rebbe says Mother Shimon Gamliel says Mother. What do we do? Simple. Ipuch. Flip around. Just flip it around. Okay. Flip around the opinions, and then everything's consistent. That was easy. L'chaim to just easy solutions. V'bay sema. Alternatively, the olam lo tipuch. No, don't flip anything around. Ella, rather, I will simply explain the scenario differently. Kilu, our scenario with Shimon saying to Reuven, "What are you doing on my field?" I'll explain it in the following way. That doesn't rely upon Mother B'Shashik Tzov Tzarech L'Kaimu. The question is, once Reuven says that I have a document, does he actually need to get that document? If Shimon would come to Reuven and say, Reuven, what are you doing on my field? As we know from Chesket Zabatim, if Reuven says, look, Zabatim Mirach V'chatishni Chazaka, I don't have a shtar, but I've been here for 3 years, I have witnesses to prove it. So he doesn't need a document. Right, that's the whole point of the chazaka, right? Is that we can't assume that Reuben's gonna hold on to the document forever. I mean, hopefully he will, but things happen, so therefore we could rely upon the chazaka. And if he would simply say I have a chazaka, that would be enough. But he didn't say that. He spoke too much. He says I have a chazaka, but I also have a shtar. So the question is, when he speaks too much, do we hold him to it? Rebbe says we hold him to it, and Shimon Gamliel says we don't. Rebbe says, yes, while if he would have only mentioned the chazaka, then the chazaka alone would have been enough. However, he mentioned that he also has a shtar, bring it out. And Shimon Gamliel says, no, even though he mentioned he has a shtar, still, chazaka and be'etzim is enough. So that's enough here as well. Okay. Where are we? So, the machlokes between Rebbe and Shimon Gamliel is that, when Reuven mentions that he has the shtar, does he then need to bring it out for us? Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yosef have a masik bei zuzei Reb Abba. Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yosef had lent money to Reb Abba, $1,000, and he wanted to get it back. Also, the Kamid Rabbi Yitzchok Nafcha, and they came before Rabbi Yitzchok Nafcha, Omar, and Reb Abba says, "Praitich b'fnei Ploni u'Floni." Look, I paid you back. Ploni and Ploni were there. So, Amle Rabbi Yitzchok, Yavo Ploni U'Floni v'Yayidu. So Rabbi Yitzchok Nafcha says, okay, Reb Abba, if you paid him back in front of so and so and so and so, bring them in, and they'll corroborate your claim. Omerle, Reb Abba says, wait a second, why do I have to bring them in? This was a milva al peh, right? Shimon lent me money. Shimon lent me, not Shimon. Reb Abba says, Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yosef lent me money. There was no document. It was a milva al peh. There were witnesses, but there was no document. So where am I? So I'm going to say, Reb Abba says to Rabbi Yitzchok Nafcha, I don't understand. Why do I have to bring in the witnesses? What, if I don't bring them, I would not be believed to say that I paid back Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yosef. But we hold that somebody, that if in this case Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yosef lent me money with witnesses, no document, just witnesses, I have no obligation to pay him back with witnesses. I could simply pay him back, and therefore I said I paid him back, and that should suffice. Why do I actually have to bring Ploni and Ploni as witnesses? So Rabbi Yitzchok Nafcha responds, because Ona Be'ahi Kishmaita Dimar Svirli. So Rabbi Yitzchok Nafcha says, I'll tell you what. Because I am holding you to what you yourself said, which is, that Reb Abba, Reb Abba bar Haba, Rab, that if somebody says that I paid you back in front of so and so and so and so, exactly like you did, well then so and so and so and so have to come and testify. So Kilu, what happened? Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef lent money to Rabbi. They came before Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Rabbi says, I already paid him back in front of Ploni and Ploni. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says, bring Ploni and Ploni. Rabbi gets all insulted. He says, wait a second, I don't need to. I didn't even need to pay them back with witnesses. I should simply be believed to say that I gave it back. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha points out, but Rabbi, you yourself say that you would need Ploni and Ploni to come. So Amalei, so Rabbi responds, Eina Chinami, I may have said that. But for Amar of Gidol Amar Rav, Allah could be Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav Gidol Amar Rav says that the Allah is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. That the Allah is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, nonetheless, that ain't Tzarech Levar. That ain't Tzarech Levar. That ain't Tzarech Levar. That therefore, if I said that I paid him back, and I said that it was in front of Ploni and Ploni, it's enough. It should be enough that I said that I paid him back, because Amavas Chaver Be'edim so that should be enough. I don't have to then also bring the witnesses. Okay, this next statement is like a little funny, but Af Rebbe Lo Amar El Levar, and even Rebbe, who says Tzarech Levarer, Kilu, he's not saying Meikar Adin, but only Levar, meaning Rebbe in the scenario when Shimon comes to Reuben and says, what are you doing in my field? Reuben says, I have a chazaka and I also have a shtar. So Rebbe admits that be'etzim, all you need is the chazaka. Kilu Meikar Adin, all you need, the chazaka is enough. But since he mentioned the shtar, so now he has to bring the shtar as well. But he doesn't actually need, like Meikar Adin, he doesn't need to. So Rebbe Nafcha says, I get that, but I'm also saying the same thing. I'm just saying, Meikar, I get it. Meikar Adin, you don't need to pay him back with witnesses, but you did mention that you had witnesses, so therefore I'm saying, bring them. Okay. Beseder. Well, that was the Kuf Ayin of Masechta BavaBasra. Okay. So we started, the Daf started out talking about Osios Niknos b'Mesira be'etzim, and then that led, right, so we saw Machlus in Rebbe, between Rav Shimon Gamliel and the Chacham. Rav Shimon Gamliel says Osios Niknos b'Mesira, the Chacham say Ein Osios Niknos b'Mesira, and then that led to this brisa about where Reuven is asked to prove that he's the owner of a field, and he says I have a chazaka and a shtar. We had three different ways, three different kind of ibais ema ways to explain that brisa pisah.